So I'm making a start on the M135 engine removal. Going to get the under tray off, front bumper, headlights, and see what we need to do to get all the crash panel, radiator, everything like that. We'll have to drop the coolant. So we'll get started. Undo the bolts holding both of the bonnet catches in position. There's 4 in each T30 Torx. So now you've got the radiator, fan, intercooler pack, but you've also got the condenser hidden in there. So what we need to do is we need to extract the aircon fluid. But before I get a machine to be able to do that, we need to drop the coolant out. So you'll want to find a pipe that's as low down as possible. I'm going to use the one that's going to the water pump. So I'm just going to undo this pipe here. Now we've got the aircon gas removed, we can undo two T30 bolts from here. The top one of mine actually sheared, so I'm looking forward to repairing that. Still a bit of gas in there. Got the pipes removed. Once you've got the aircon pipes off, I'm still struggling with the bottom one myself. Get the remainder of the coolant hoses out of the way. So I've got one down there as well. Then underneath disconnects the intercooler pipes on both sides. And you've got a bolt to remove from each side here. And then the whole assembly can be lifted. Every part of the coolant system that you disconnect, make sure that you've got a bucket underneath, because there'll be coolant trapped everywhere in the system. So I ended up removing the aircon pipe at the pump side as it came out easier. Right, so I've got the exhaust completely removed because I couldn't get it to separate in the centre there. I've got the cat hanging out of position and I'm sort of ready to remove this heat shield here, separate the prop shaft from the gearbox and this gearbox mount so that I can tilt the engine up enough to remove the gearbox or remove the engine and gearbox together completely. Now, one thing I have forgotten to do, and I'm going to do it now before I start disconnecting any more components, is I forgot to disconnect the battery. Now, obviously I blocked my car in quite bad, so I'm having to disconnect the battery from the... So just remove the negative lead with a 10mm and tuck it away, make sure it's nowhere near the terminal on the battery. Now, I didn't think of this before, so one of the bolts on the prop is always going to be out of reach because there's three. So when both the wheels are on the ground, the prop can't be turned. So I've had to jack up one of the wheels in order to be able to turn the prop so that I can get to all three bolts. Now we're almost ready to start disconnecting all the components and releasing the engine from the engine mounts. The gearbox is already released. Remove the oil lines that go to the cooler. You've got a T30 Torx here. Now beware that the oil filter will empty of oil, and then you've got another T30 Torx holding the bracket here. On the N54 engine, the towing eye fit in this hole here and could be used as a point to hoist the engine up, but the N55, this one, doesn't seem to fit, so we have to find something else. Going to remove this brace on the top and this piece of plastic that gives us a bit of extra room above the engine. Remove the two grommets here to reveal the two bolts for this brace. Note the positioning of all the connectors just in case they aren't all individual. Right, so here's where it all goes wrong. I've not got the only mount that you should have, which is the towing eye that goes into here, but it seems that it's the same size as the E92 or N54 engine, but the towing eye that comes with the 1 Series is too big, so it doesn't fit. I've managed to get a strap going round the bottom of the engine, avoiding the bulky part of the sump, and I'm confident that it's not applying too much pressure to any components on the side of the engine. I've got it quite far back behind the intake manifold throttle body. I'm just hoping it's in a good balancing point because I've still got the gearbox attached. So I've got it loose in there. The prop shaft will probably drop out at some point because it's still hanging out of the back of the gearbox. Now it's at this point that you'll probably want to take a good look around the engine and make sure there aren't any electrical components or anything still attached to the gearbox or the engine. So I've still got to sort out the main harnesses, and there may be a connector on the gearbox that I need to sort out. Right, I've re-supported the drive shaft in the centre, and now I've got the gear linkage to detach. Now it looks like this can just be popped out. It's actually easier to remove the other side of this linkage, that's the bit that connects to the actual gearbox, but this is how I did it at the time and I didn't realise. Might need to move the gear stick across. And possibly not. The engine's got to come up quite high because the sump goes down and below the steering rack. I got so carried away I forgot to carry on recording. So I removed the engine mounts completely, so we'd already undone them from the bottom, but I took the 16mm nuts off the top on both sides, which stops them catching on the rack. The engine needed to be raised enough for the bottom of the sump to avoid the rack also, and then we just had the gearbox sort of dragging along the tunnel, so you've just got to keep moving everything, dropping the engine, raising the engine, just until it becomes completely free, constantly checking to see if you've missed any connectors or components. So the last thing we want to do is break anything when we've got this far. So I seem to get the balance point absolutely bang on I made sure that the strap wasn't trapping any components. And now we just need to remove the gearbox. So thanks for watching me remove the engine from the M135. I know it wasn't a step-by-step guide, but to be honest, if I can get this engine out of this car without using a manual, I'm pretty sure that someone who's done a few jobs before would be able to get this engine out. Now, in the next video, I'll be removing the gearbox and mounting the complete engine onto this new engine stand that I've bought. So I hope to see you in the next video, and good luck if you're doing this job yourself.